And we are back. The Urban Wild is a STEM workforce development nonprofit offering education on sustainable agricultural technology and job training for underserved youth within our communities. And here to tell us a little bit more about it is the CEO, co-founder of the Urban Wild, Samia Lemfadi. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Good. So you got a technology program.
Yes.
And so give us a little bit about this technology program and the work that it does.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially what we saw in our communities was a lack of access to healthy food, but more so a lack of access to solutions on how to improve it locally. And so what me and my co-founder did was we went through training programs ourselves that allowed us to learn about technology and agriculture and then figure out how we can build our own system. So the first one we built is called Platt Bot. It's a mobile-friendly environmental sensor system, and it's really unlike anything out there because we're measuring more metrics than the typical farming system does. We're doing it more affordably than the typical farming system does, and we're making it accessible on your phone. So what that really means is that barriers to creating commercial farm spaces locally are now reduced because we're able to have the same kind of technologies that would be used in commercial farms, but affordably. So areas that like the Bronx and Brooklyn and small scale systems that want to be big, they have a better chance at doing that.
How's that being received?
Yeah, it's interesting because the agriculture sector is very much, a little bit old school, and the technology sector is very much they want things clean cut. And so it's kind of like a balance between the art and the science because you can't really control nature, and we're trying to get people to understand to work with it. And so an example of that is aquaponics, which is basically hydroponic farming integrated with fish. And so it's more sustainable. It uses 90% less water, produces up to 4 times the amount of yields, requires absolutely no pesticides, and the great thing is it requires no soil. So what that means is that in areas that have extremely bad arable soil access, which is due to climate change, water scarcity issues are becoming more prevalent, and by 2025 an estimated 1.8 billion people are going to be in a water scarce state, and that's coming up very soon. So really what we want to prepare people for is how to take advantage of local access to food systems that they build, they own, they operate themselves, and be able to scale that technology to help solve these issues in the future.
And I know you also have a passion working with underserved communities, right?
Absolutely.
Because here in the borough of the Bronx, of course, we've got that. You've got, a lot of underserved communities in the city.
Yeah.
But when it comes to agriculture, really meeting their needs and creating programming, I know that you're bridging the gap there.
Yes, absolutely. So what we try to target is 18 to 24-year-olds who are out of school and out of work. And something that is really important to me for tapping that demographic is because I belonged to that same demographic at one point. And it was workforce development programs in the Bronx, like Perscolas, like Platform by Perscolas, like General Assembly, that really made a difference for me entering the sector and being able to have opportunities to work on projects with Uber and Roku and Cognizant and MIT and be able to have the access to build my own technologies and think outside the box. It was just a really empowering thing for me because, the challenges that come with growing up in areas like we did, they're very limited opportunities, so you have to make them yourself, and you have to tap into the access of resources that are out there. And that's the same story for my co-founder who went through Green City Forest and went through Square Roots and now is founding with me this nonprofit. And so we really believe in it because we've seen it work. And not only that, I ended up working for these nonprofits and able to place in the last 3 years up to almost 300 students in jobs in the last 3 years. Yeah, and they're from the Bronx and Brooklyn and all over, and able to do really impactful things now years later. So we really do believe in this grassroots effort to solve the problems locally, give them the tools to be able to solve it more scalably.
Talk to me about locally, because obviously we're here in the borough, and what are the agricultural issues that we are facing right here in our borough?
So there's a few different issues. So one is access to green spaces. The green spaces that are out there, like community gardens, we feel have been underutilized and have been under-resourced. And so part of what our model is to go into community gardens that we know are looking to do more. For example, Synergy Urban Garden is where we're kicking off our summer programs with Montefiore and with in our own in-house program. And so essentially they have a greenhouse that has the potential to produce thousands of plants every few weeks and even have an aquaponic system in there, and they want to. So what we did is we raised the funds, we got the grant, we did what we needed to do to bring in now the tools to be able to build out that full-scale aquaponic farm. So that's what we're going to be doing with our students this summer, as well as 2 separate aquaponic systems, and essentially bringing that garden to a place where it can legitimately serve the area that it's in and be able to produce fish and crops that mean something to the community. So that's one issue when it comes to access to green spaces that are food production spaces, but also access to healthy food and education around how to localize this. And so there's other methods like regenerative farming and hydroponics that we are also teaching as a result. And then lastly is access to the jobs in this sector. That's, for me, is I feel like the biggest pain point was that we talk about education, but we don't talk about how to actualize it sometimes. And so really what we want to do is not only give those skills on how to talk about and how to farm, how to use technology with it to optimize it, and then more than that, how to go into these sectors and create a pathway for your own employment and for your own gainful skills, which we're now seeing a trend toward with the good jobs, 100,000 good jobs in New York that they're trying to commit to, trying to do the Green New Deal with the roofing systems where we have farmers being able to build these systems out. So there are pathways to jobs now for sustainability, for green spaces, and so we really want to tap into that.
Before we get out of here, I want to talk about this whole situation. The Bronx has this huge food desert too,
Yes,
as well.
yes.
And so, how do we address the issue of, this desert scarcity as we see it here in the borough? Because while we have a lot of great things, scarcity is really prevalent.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and I grew up in a situation similar to that, where in Brooklyn, we didn't have access to affordable, healthy food. So what we do with our systems is that we're not using them to generate revenue for ourselves. We're actually using them so we can supply shelters and food pantries that we know, like we work with The Point. And so we're hoping to essentially pipeline the greens that we're growing there into these kind of channels that are already feeding people and want assistance with that. And so that way we can have more locally accessed healthy food. But really what we do notice is that due to the amount of land that you can utilize for these purposes, it will be challenging to be able to create commercial spaces. And so we need to get to a point where we can build up the workforce and then be able to buy the properties that we know will be able to actually feed the DOE and feed different shelter systems and feed the city. That's our goal.
All right. Well, Samia, thanks so much for coming
Thank
and being
you.
with us.
I appreciate you.
Keep up the great work.
I appreciate you. Thank you so
All righty.
much.
Well, to find out more about the Urban Wild, you can visit them at theurbanwild.us and also follow them on Instagram at Change Food for Good. Don't go anywhere. We still got some more show. We are coming right back in a few.